Damn. You came into the darkness and you made a difference. Come into the darkness again. Yes, I wanted to affirm this prayer, believe this prayer, commit myself to this prayer, but I couldn't. The darkness is too deep, the suffering too intense, the divine absence too palpable. During the time that it took for the Christmas Eve service to conclude, more than 700 children in the world would have died of hunger, 250 others from drinking unsafe water, and nearly 300 other people from malaria. Not to mention the ones who had been raped, mutilated, tortured, dismembered, and murdered. Nor the innocent victims caught up in the human trade industry, nor those suffering throughout the world from grinding poverty, the destitute migrant farm workers in our own country, those who were homeless and inflicted with mental disease. Nor to mention the silent suffering that so many millions of the well-fed and well-tended have to experience daily. The pain of children with birth defects, children killed in car accidents, children senselessly taken by leukemia, the pain of divorce and broken families, the pain of lost jobs, lost income, failed prospects. And where is God? Some people think that they know the answers, or they aren't bothered by the questions. I'm not one of those people. I've been thinking intensely about these questions for many, many years. I've heard the answers, and even though I know I once knew and was satisfied with these answers, I'm no longer satisfied. I think I know when suffering started to become a problem for me. It was while I was still a believing Christian. In fact, it was when I was pastoring the Princeton Baptist Church in New Jersey. It was not the suffering that I observed and tried to deal with in the congregation, failed marriages, economic hardship, the suicide of a teenage boy, that prompted my questioning, but something that took place outside the church, in the academy. At the time, in addition to working in the church, I was writing my PhD dissertation and also teaching part-time at Rutgers University. One of the classes I taught that year was a new one for me. Until then, I had mainly taught courses on the Hebrew Bible, the New Testament, and the writings of Paul. But I had been asked to teach a course called The Problem of Suffering in the Biblical Traditions. I welcomed the opportunity because it seemed like an interesting way to approach the Bible, examining the responses given by various biblical authors to the question of why there is suffering in the world, in particular among the people of God. It was my belief then, and continues to be my belief now, that different biblical authors had different solutions to the question of why God's people suffer. Some, such as the prophets, thought that suffering came from God as a punishment for sin. Some thought that suffering came from God's cosmic enemies, who inflicted suffering precisely because people tried to do what was right before God. Others thought that suffering came as a test to see if people would remain faithful despite suffering. Others said that suffering was a mystery and that it was wrong even to question why God allowed it. Still, others thought that this world is just an inexplicable mess and that we should eat, drink, and be merry while we can, and so on. It seemed to me at the time, and seems so now, that one of the ways to see the rich diversity of the scriptural heritage of Jews and Christians was to see how different authors responded to this fundamental question of suffering. For the class I had, students do a lot of reading throughout the Bible and also assign several popular books that discuss suffering in the modern world. For example, Elie Wiesel's classic, Night, which describes his horrifying experiences in Auschwitz as a teenager. Rabbi Harold Kushner's best-selling When Bad Things Happen to Good People, and the much less read but thoroughly moving story of Job, as rewritten by Archibald MacLeish in his play J.B. In the class, students wrote a number of papers, and each week we discussed the biblical passages and the extra reading that had been assigned. I began the semester by laying out for the students the classical problem of suffering and explaining what is meant by the technical term theodicy. Theodicy is a word invented by one of the great intellectuals and polymaths of the 17th century, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, who wrote a lengthy treatise in which he tried to explain how and why there can be suffering in the world if God is all powerful and wants the absolute best for people. The term is made up of two Greek words, theos, meaning God, and dike, which means justice. I may have pronounced that wrong, but whatever. Theodicy, in other words, refers to the problem of how God can be just or righteous, given the fact that there is so much suffering in the world that he allegedly created and is sovereign over. As philosophers and theologians have discussed theodicy over the years, they have devised a kind of logical problem that needs to be solved to explain the suffering in the world. This problem involves three assertions that all appear to be true, but if true, appear to contradict one another. The assertions are these: God is all powerful, God is all loving, and that there is suffering. How can all three be true at once? If God is all powerful, then he is able to do whatever he wants. If he is all loving, then he obviously wants the best for people. And yet people suffer. How can that be explained? Some thinkers have tried to deny one or the other of the assertions. Some, for example, have argued that God is not really all powerful. That is ultimately the answer given by Rabbi Kushner and when bad things happen to good people. For Kushner, God wishes he could intervene to bring your suffering to an end, but his hands are tied. And so he's the one who stands beside you to give you the strength you need to deal with the pain in your life, but he cannot do anything to stop the pain. For other thinkers, this is to put a limit on the power of God and is, in effect, a way of saying that God is not really a God. Others have argued that God is not all loving, at least in any conventional sense. This is more or less the view of those who think God is at fault for the terrible suffering that people endure, a view that seems close to what Elie Wiesel asserts when he expresses his anger at God and declares him guilty for how he has treated his people. Others, again, object and claim that if God is not love, again, he is not God. There are some people who want to deny the third assertion. They claim that there is not really any suffering in the world, but these people are in the extreme minority and have never been very convincing to most of us who prefer looking at the world as it is to hiding our heads in the sand like ostriches. Most people who wrestle with the problem want to say that all three assertions are true, but that there is some kind of extenuating circumstance that can explain it all. For example, in the classical view of the prophets of the Hebrew Bible, as we'll see at length in the next couple of chapters, God is certainly all-powerful and all-loving. One of the reasons there is suffering is that his people have violated his law or gone against his will, and he is bringing suffering upon them to force them to return to him and lead righteous lives. This kind of explanation works well, so long as it is the wicked who suffer. But what about the wicked who prosper, while the ones who try to do what is right before God are racked with interminable pain and unbearable misery? How does one explain the suffering of the righteous? For that, another explanation needs to be used. For example, that all will be made right in the afterlife, a view not found in the prophets, but in other biblical authors. And so it goes. Even though it was a scholar of the Enlightenment, Leibniz, who came up with the term theodicy, and even though the deep philosophical problem has been with us only since the Enlightenment, the basic problem has been around since time immemorial. This was recognized by the intellectuals of the Enlightenment themselves. One of them, the English philosopher David Hume, pointed out that the problem was stated some 2,500 years ago by one of the great philosophers of ancient Greece, Epicurus. Epicurus's old questions are yet unanswered. Is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he is impotent. Is he able but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Whence then evil? As I was teaching my course on biblical views of suffering at Rutgers more than 20 years ago, I began to realize that the students seemed remarkably and somewhat inexplicably detached from the problem. It was a good group of students, smart and attentive, but they were, for the most part, white, middle-class kids who had yet to experience very much pain in their lives, and I had to do some work to help them realize that suffering was, in fact, a problem. As it turned out, that was the time of one of the great Ethiopian famines. In order to drive home for my students just how disturbing suffering could be, I spent some time with them dealing with the problem of the famine. It was an enormous problem, in part because of the political situation, but even more because of a massive drought. 8 million Ethiopians were confronting severe shortages and, as a result, starving. Every day there were pictures in the papers of poor souls, famished, desperate, with no relief in sight. Eventually, 1 out of every 8 died, the horrific death of starvation. That's 1 million people starve to death in a world that has far more than enough food to feed all its inhabitants. A world in which American farmers are paid to destroy their crops, and most Americans ingest far more calories than our bodies need or want. To make my point, I would show pictures of the famine to the students, pictures of emaciated Ethiopian women with famished children on their breasts, desperate for nourishment that would never come, both mother and children eventually destroyed by the ravages of hunger. Before the semester was over, I think my students got the point. Most of them did learn to grapple with the problem. At the beginning of the course, many of them had thought that whatever problem there was with suffering could be easily solved. The most popular solution that they had was one that I suspect most people in our Western world still hold to. It has to do with free will. According to this view, the reason there is so much suffering in the world is that God has given human beings free will. Without the free will to love and obey God, we would simply be robots doing what we were programmed to do. But since we have the free will to love and obey, we also have the free will to hate and disobey. And this is where suffering comes from. Hitler, the Holocaust, Idi Amin, corrupt governments throughout the world, corrupt human beings inside and outside of government, all of these are explained on the grounds of free will. As it turns out, this was more or less the answer given by some of the great intellectuals of the Enlightenment, including Leibniz, who argued that human beings have to be free in order for this world to be the best world that could come into existence. For Leibniz, God is all powerful, and so we are able to create. Let me back up. For Leibniz, God is all powerful, and so was able to create any kind of world he wanted. And since he was all loving, he obviously wanted to create the best of all possible worlds. This world, with freedom of choice given to its creatures, is therefore the best of all possible worlds. Other philosophers rejected this view, and none so famously, vitriolically, and even hilariously as the French philosopher Voltaire, whose classic novel, Candide, tells the story of a man who experiences such senseless and random suffering and misery in this allegedly best of all worlds that he abandons his Leibnizian upbringing and adopts a more sensible view that we can't know the whys and wherefores of what happens in this world, but should simply do our very best to enjoy it while we can. Candide is still a novel very much worth reading. It's witty, clever, and damning. If this is the best possible world, just imagine what a worse one would be. In any event, as it turns out, much to the surprise of my students, this standard explanation that God had to give human beings free will and that suffering is the result of people badly exercising it plays only a very minor role in the biblical tradition. The biblical authors did not think about the possibilities of not having free will. They certainly didn't know about robots or indeed any machines that more or less did what they were programmed to do. But they had many explanations other than free will for why people suffer. The goal of the class was to discuss these other views, evaluate them, and try to see if any resolution of the problem was even possible. It was, in fact, fairly easy to show some of the problems with this standard modern explanation that suffering comes from free will. Yes, you can explain the political machinations of the competing political forces in Ethiopia, or in Nazi Germany, or in Stalin's Soviet Union, or in the ancient worlds of Israel and Mesopotamia, by claiming that human beings had badly handled the freedom given to them. But how can you explain drought? When it hits, it's not because someone chose not to make it rain. Or how do you explain a hurricane that destroyed New Orleans? Or a tsunami that kills hundreds of thousands overnight? Or earthquakes, or mudslides, or malaria, or dysentery? The list goes on. Moreover, the claim that free will stands behind all suffering has always been a bit problematic, at least from a thinking perspective. Most people who believe in God-given free will also believe in an afterlife. Presumably, people in the afterlife will still have free will, I suppose. And yet, there won't be suffering, allegedly. Why will people know how to exercise free will in heaven if they can't know how to exercise it on earth? In fact, if God can give free will as a great gift, why didn't he give them the intelligence they need to exercise it so that they can all live happily and peaceably together? You can't argue that he wasn't able to do so if you want to argue that he is all-powerful. Moreover, if God sometimes intervenes in history to counteract the free will decisions of others, For example, when he destroyed the Egyptian armies at the Exodus, or when he fed the multitudes in the wilderness in the days of Jesus, or when he counteracted the wicked decision of the Roman governor Pilate to destroy Jesus by raising the crucified Jesus from the dead. If he intervenes sometimes to counteract free will, why does he not do it some more of the time, or indeed all of the time? At the end of the day, one would have to say that the answer is a mystery. We don't know why free will works so well in heaven, but not on earth. We don't know why God doesn't provide the intelligence we need to exercise free will. We don't know why he sometimes contravenes the free exercise of the will and sometimes not. And this presents a problem, because if in the end the question is resolved by saying that the answer is a mystery, then it is no longer an answer. It is an admission that there is no answer. The solution of free will in the end ultimately leads to the conclusion that it is all a mystery. As it turns out, that is one of the common answers asserted by the Bible. We just don't know why there's suffering. But other answers in the Bible are just as common, in fact, even more common. In my class at Rutgers, I wanted to explore all these answers to see what the biblical authors thought about such matters and to evaluate what they had to say. Based on my experience with the class, I decided at the end of the term that I wanted to write a book about it, a study of suffering and biblical responses to it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I wasn't ready to write the book. I was just 37 years old at the time, and although I had seen a lot of the world, I recognized that I had not seen nearly enough of it. A book like this requires years of thought and reflection and a broader sense of the world and fuller understanding of life. I'm now 20 years older, and I still may not be ready to write the book. It's true, I've seen a lot more of the world over these years. I've experienced a lot more pain myself, and I've seen the pain and misery of others, sometimes close up. Broken marriages, failed health, cancer taking away loved ones in the prime of life, suicide, birth defects, children killed in car accidents, homelessness, mental disease. You can make your own list from your own experiences of life over the last 20 years. And I've read a lot. Genocides and ethnic cleansings, not only in Nazi Germany, but also in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia, and now Darfur. Terrorist attacks, massive starvation, epidemics, ancient and modern, mudslides that killed 30,000 Colombians in one fell swoop, droughts, earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis. Still, even with 20 years additional experience and reflection, I may not be ready to write the book. But I suppose in another 20 years, with a horrible suffering in store for this world, I may feel the same way then, so I've decided to write it now. And I've already intimated my basic goal in writing the book is to explore the biblical answers to the problem of suffering. I think this is an important task for a number of reasons. Number one, many people turn to the Bible as a source of comfort, hope, and inspiration. Even for those people who do not, the Bible lies at the foundation of Western culture and civilization, providing the background for the ways we think about the world and our place in it. Number two, the Bible contains many and varied answers to the problem of why there is suffering in the world. Number three, many of these answers are at odds with one another and at odds with what most people seem to think today. Number four, the majority of people, even Bible believers, as well as regular people on the street who might have some kind of vague respect for the Bible, but no particular commitment to it, have no idea what these various biblical answers to the problem of suffering are. Over the years, I've talked with a lot of people about issues pertaining to suffering, and I'm struck by the kinds of reactions I get. A lot of people, frankly, just don't want to talk about it. For them, talking about suffering is kind of like talking about toilet habits. They're there and can't be avoided, but it's not really something you want to bring up at a cocktail party. There are other people, again, a lot of people, who have simply and pat answers for the problem and really don't see why there's such a problem. I imagine a lot of people reading this first chapter are like that. When I go on about all the suffering in the world, they're tempted to write me an email to explain it all to me. It's because of free will. Suffering is meant to make us stronger. God sometimes put us to the test, and so on. Other people, including some of my brilliant friends, realize why it's a religious problem for me, but don't see it as a problem for themselves. In its most nuanced form, this view is that religious faith is not an intellectualizing system for explaining everything. Faith is a mystery and an experience of the divine in the world, not a solution to a set of problems. I respect this view deeply, and some days I wish I shared it, but I don't. The God that I once believed in was a God who was active in this world. He saved the Israelites from slavery. He sent Jesus for the salvation of the world. He answered prayer. He intervened on behalf of his people when they were in desperate need. He was actively involved in my life. But I can't believe in that God anymore because from now, what I see around the world, he doesn't intervene. One answer to that objection is that he intervenes in the hearts of the suffering, bringing them solace and hope in the time of their darkest need. It's a nice thought, but I'm afraid that from where I sit, it's simply not true. The vast majority of people dying of starvation or malaria or AIDS feel no solace or hope at all. Only sheer physical agony, personal abandonment, and mental anguish. The pat answer to that is that it doesn't need to be that way if they have faith. I, on the other hand, simply don't think that's true. Just look around. In any event, my ultimate goal in this book is to examine the biblical responses to suffering, to see what they are, to assess how they might be useful for thinking people to see how they might be useful for thinking people trying to get a handle on the reality of suffering, either in their own lives or in the lives of others, and to evaluate their adequacy in light of the realities of our world. As I've already intimated, what comes as a surprise to many readers of the Bible is that some of these answers are not what they would expect, and that some of the answers stand at odds with one another. I will try to show, for example, that the book of Job has two sets of answers to the problem of suffering. One is in the story of Job, found at the beginning and end of the book. The other is in the dialogues between Job and his friends that take up most of the chapters. These two views are at odds with each other. Moreover, both views differ from the views of the prophets, and the prophetic answer, found throughout much of the Hebrew Bible, is at odds with the views of Jewish apocalypticists such as Daniel, Paul, and even Jesus. It's important, I think, to realize that the Bible has a wide range of answers to the problem of suffering because this realization reveals the problem of thinking that the Bible has one simple answer to every issue. Many people in our world take a smorgasbord approach to the Bible, picking and choosing what suits them and their views without acknowledging that the Bible is an extremely complex and intricate concatenation of views, perspectives, and ideas. There are millions of people in our world, for example, who suffer social estrangement because of their sexual orientation. Some of this social alienation originates among simple-minded Bible believers who insist that gay relationships are condemned in Scripture. As it turns out, this is a debated issue, one on which serious scholars disagree. But apart from that, this condemnation of gay relations, because the Bible condemns it, is a case of people choosing to accept the parts of the Bible they want to accept and ignoring everything else. The same book that condemns same-sex relations, for example, also require people to stone their children to death if they're disobedient, to execute anyone who does work on the Sunday or on Saturday, or who eats pork chops, and to condemn anyone who wears a shirt made of two kinds of fabric. No special emphasis is placed on one of these laws over the others. They are all part of the biblical law. Yet, in parts of society, gay relations are condemned, while eating a ham sandwich during a lunch break on a Saturday is perfectly acceptable. It's important then to see what the Bible actually says and not to pretend it doesn't say something that happens to contradict one's own particular point of view. But whatever the Bible says needs to be evaluated. This is not a matter of setting oneself up as God, dictating what is and is not divine truth. It's a matter of using our intelligence to assess the merit of what the Bible authors say. Whether this involves questions of suffering, sexual preferences, working on weekends, or culinary and sartorial choices. Having said this, I should stress that it is not the goal of this book to convince you, my reader, to share my point of view about suffering, God, or religion. I'm not interested in destroying anyone's faith or deconverting people from their religion. I'm not about to urge anyone to become an agnostic. Unlike other recent agnostic or atheist authors, I do not think that every reasonable and reasonably intelligent person will, in the end, come to see things my way when it comes to the important issues of life. But I do know that many thinking people think about suffering. This is in no small measure because of all of us suffer, and many of us suffer a lot. Even those of us who are well off, who are well educated, and who are well cared for, even we can experience professional disappointment, unexpected unemployment and loss of income, the death of a child, failed health. We can get cancer or heart disease or AIDS. All of us will eventually suffer and die. It's worth thinking about these things, and in doing so, it's worth seeing how others have thought about them before us. In this case, those others who produced the books that became the Bible, the best-selling book of all time, and the book that lies at the core of our civilization and culture. And so my goal is to help people think about suffering. There are, of course, numerous books about suffering already. In my opinion, though, many of these books are either intellectually unsatisfactory, morally bankrupt, or practically useless. Some of them attempt to give an easy or easy to digest answer to the question of why people suffer. For people who prefer easy answers, those can be useful books. But for people who struggle deeply with life's questions and do not find easy answers all that satisfying, such books merely irritate the mind and grate on the nerves. They are not helpful. Still, there is a good deal of simplistic schlock written about suffering. Pious sounding or pat and very old, unimaginative answers sell well after all these years. Other books are morally dubious, in my opinion, especially those written by intellectual theologians or philosophers who wrestle with the question of evil in the abstract, trying to provide an intellectually satisfying answer to the question of theodicy. What I find morally repugnant about many such books is that they are so far removed from the actual pain and suffering that takes place in our world, dealing with evil as a quote unquote idea rather than as an experienced reality that rips apart people's lives. This book will neither provide an easy solution nor attack the question philosophically by applying difficult intellectual concepts and making hard to understand claims with sophisticated and esoteric vocabulary. My interest for this book is instead with some of the age-old and traditional reflections on evil found in the foundational documents of the Judeo-Christian tradition. The questions I'll be asking are these. What do the biblical authors say about suffering? Do they give one answer or many answers? Which of their answers contradict one another, and why does it matter? How can we, as 21st century thinkers, evaluate these answers, which were given in different contexts so many centuries ago? My hope is that by looking at these ancient writings that eventually came to form the Bible, we will be empowered to wrestle more responsibly and thoughtfully with the issues they raise as we ponder one of the most pressing and wrenching questions of our human existence, why we suffer. And that is the end of chapter 1. Now I'm on chapter 2, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, the classical view of suffering. But I'm not going to read it because I want to pause there because I need more coffee and I want to smoke this blunt and maybe interact with y'all. Hold on. Where's my motherfucking bookmark though? My motherfucker out there though. So this is the book. God's Problem, How the Bible Fails to Answer Our Most Important Question, Why We Suffer. It's by fucking Ehrman, Bart Ehrman. You couldn't see that, but it's, well, you can see it here. It's at the bottom, Bart D. Ehrman. I had 2 books come in today, and that was one of the 2. Thanks, Chris. That is a pretty good book. It's all cool. That's right. Yeah, that's what's up, Mary Jane. I'm about to get another cup, son. Like, I need it to live. Oh, thanks, Chris. I be fucking up sometimes, but I be trying not to. But I noticed the more you read aloud, the better you get at it. And I've read, I'd say in the last year and a half, maybe 56 books. All of them science and religion related or socioeconomic sort of books. Coffee is definitely essential. Thank you. Thank you. Wave, son of degeneracy. Thank you. Well, I'll be trying, I'll be trying to do a good job. It helps to know how the author speaks so that you can get a better understanding of how they're speaking when they write. I just assume that most people write the way they speak. Yeah, it does say that, Zakul. It definitely says that. No argument there. Doesn't mean I believe it, There's no reason to believe it. But yeah, it definitely says that. That is accurate according to the scripture. Well, thank you, Elder Barbara Jr. It is their book. Have you read the Quran too? What do you think about that? Ayat, I have not yet read the Quran. However, I heard that it doesn't take that long to read. I heard that this is coming from Sam Harris. Sam Harris said it only takes maybe like 10 hours, to read the Quran, whereas the Bible, it takes like exponentially longer to read the Bible. So I have every plan to read the Quran just because, I want to. I want to know what it says so that I can better argue against it. They do hate facts. I don't know why, though. Oh, well, that's what's up, Chris. Man, you make me smile. God, I need to warm this up. I'm going to keep reading, though. You know what I mean? Not right this second, but. Look at that. That should look. Yikes. Hurry up, coffee. I got more in the damn pot. I just didn't want to, you know what I mean? I figured I'd go ahead and just warm up what I had before I pour some more. There's not a whole lot left. It's like 5. What did it say? About 5 cups? About 5 cups left. Hurry up. You are so funny, man. Barbara, Elder Barbara, that's what's up. The blunt. Oh, shit. Put some. What the fuck? Don't come in here with that bullshit. Why would you even say that? Alright. Okay, now I gotta smoke. That motherfucker's sign. Ooh-wee. Let's go. I cannot believe that first chapter was 20 fucking pages. Like, bro, don't nobody want to read 20 pages of a chapter? Like, I'm looking at chapter 2. Chapter 2, even longer. 50, 51, 55. God damn. Chapter 2, like 30 pages, bruh. He had a lot to say about sinners in the hands of an angry God, apparently. All right. Don't worry about him, Chris. I went ahead and hid him from the channel because he on some other shit, and I ain't got time for that. Who did your profile picture? I did. So this is how I did it, right? I just took a picture of me making that weird face, and then I took that picture to PicsArt, to my PicsArt app, and then I just cut my head out, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just cut my head out of the picture, and then I essentially created a sticker with just my head, and then I went and downloaded a picture of a pentagram, and then I just put my picture of my face on top of that picture. And then in really faint letters, like you can't see it really in the picture, but it says in the picture also Dade Murphy established 1981. So that's also in the picture, but it's really hard to notice. But that's how I did it. I just did it all through like PicsArt, you know. You got to get the book Power of Mythology by Joseph Campbell and Bill Moore. That's the book that started Star Wars. Oh, excellent, excellent. I have this book, the Treatise on Human Nature, or some shit. I think that's what it's called, by David Hume. I just haven't gotten around to it yet because I got like 3 books that I've yet to read that I'm really interested. Well, one of them is this book that I'm currently reading, God's Problem. The other one I already forgot what it's called, but it's another book also by Bart Ehrman. He's just one of the most preeminent biblical scholars whose work I trust. But he also talked about another guy who's even a more prolific scholar than he is. I think his name is Brian Metzger. I'm not sure what his first. It could be Bruce. It could be Brian. I'm not sure, but Metzger is definitely the last name. So I also want to get some of his work to see his take on, as far as his investigating scriptures in order to establish the veracity of its historicity. Thanks, Chris. Oh yeah. He said, I saw that. You saw what? What do you think happens when we die? Fucking hell. What do you think happens, motherfucker? It'll be pretty much what it was like before you were born. The world will go on. You won't have any knowledge of it happening. You won't have any memory. You'll just be fucking dead. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, your consciousness will cease to end. And if your parents or whoever chose to bury you, then you'll be put in the fucking ground until you rot and become worm food. Otherwise, they'll just throw you in a fucking furnace or whatever and burn you. And then you'll just be ashes scattered about somewhere or sitting in someone's urn. Otherwise, there's no reason to believe anything beyond that. I mean, it's okay to assert that, but you would need to provide evidence to suggest that such a place exists, and you don't have any evidence to substantiate that claim. So I would drop the claim so that you don't seem like an irrational person. I know, right? Yeah, me neither. I mean, there's no reason to believe it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm open to it. Like, if there was like some scientist or whatever was like, yo, we have found proof for hell, and the evidence was compelling, well, I'd have to accept it. I would have to then accept that there was a hell. But so far, there's no reason to believe such a thing. There's no more reason to believe that there's a hell than there is to believe that there's a Never Never Land. So, all right. Let me see. Does he have like a midway point where I could stop, or? Oh my. Okay, so he do, but it's like 6 pages away. Holy hell. Just like Hell for Eternity is just so fairy tale sounding to me. I mean, Heaven for Eternity would sound fairy tale, and not even a good fairy tale. Like, I wouldn't want to go to either place. Assuming either place existed, I wouldn't want to, you know what I mean? Thanks, Mary Jane. Like, I just wouldn't want to go there. Like, because I think Bart posed an interesting question. Like, if assuming you were to go to heaven, then what? Do you have free will in heaven? Can you act up in heaven and get kicked out of heaven, or are you just in there for good? You know what I mean? And then once you're there, what do you do? At least here on Earth, there's like shit you could do. You know what I mean? Like, but in heaven, like what? It just none of it makes sense. It's just all ridiculousness. But there's no credible evidence to suggest that such a place exists. So there's no reason to believe there is such a place. How can we discuss the problem of suffering without beginning with the Holocaust, the most heinous crime against humanity in the known history of the human race? It is relatively easy to cite the standard numbers of those murdered by the Nazi killing machine, but almost impossible to imagine the intensity and extent of the misery produced. 6 million Jews murdered in cold blood, simply for being Jews. 1 out of every 3 Jews on the face of the planet obliterated. 5 million non-Jews Poles, Czechs, Gypsies, homosexuals, religious deviants, and others. A total of 11 million people killed, not in battle as enemy combatants, but as human beings, unacceptable to those in power, and brutally murdered. Knowing the numbers somehow masks the horror. It's important to remember that each and every one of those killed was an individual with a personal story, a flesh and blood human being with hopes, fears, loves, hates, families, friends, possessions, longings, desires. Each of them had a story to tell, or would had they have lived to tell it. The first-hand accounts of those who survived will haunt you and give you nightmares. Accounts of being systematically starved, beaten, abused, experimented upon, worked almost to death in foul and inhumane conditions. We treat animals better. It is the killings, of course, that are most remembered. Some 3 million Jews from Poland, 1.5 million from Russia, entire Jewish populations of some smaller places. From Budapest, 440,000 Jews were deported in May of 1944. 400,000 of them were killed in Auschwitz. In Romania, the city of Odessa has some 90,000 Jews when the city fell to the Germans in October of 1941. Most of them were shot to death that month. So too in nearby villages, as recounted in a later report. In the fall of 1941, an SS detachment appeared in one of the villages and arrested all the Jews. They were arrayed in front of a ditch by the road and told to undress. Then the leader of the SS group declared that the Jews had released the war and that the assembled people had to pay for it. After this speech, the grown-ups were shot and the children slain with rifle butts. The bodies were covered with gasoline and set on fire. Children who were still alive were tossed into the flames. Children burned alive. This is a theme repeated throughout the sources. Most of the Jews and others were killed in the camps. One of the best known and most widely read survivors of Auschwitz, Primo Levi, provided one of the earliest firsthand accounts in his Auschwitz report. Levi was one of 650 people crammed into cattle cars for transport to Auschwitz from his hometown of Fiesole, Italy. In the end, only 24 survived. Upon arrival, some 525 were chosen for the gas chambers. Within a couple of hours, they were dead and loaded into elevators to the furnace. Another 100 were worked to death in the camps. The brutal conditions are thoroughly documented. Levi himself provides one account, just under 2 years after the events. Before that period, 1944, there were no medical services and the sick had no possibility of getting treatment, but were forced to labor as usual every day until they collapsed from exhaustion at their work. Naturally, such cases occurred with great frequency. Confirmation of death would then be carried out in a singular fashion. The task was entrusted to 2 individuals, not doctors, who were armed with ox sinews and had to beat the fallen man for several minutes on end. After they had finished, if he failed to react with some movement, he was considered to be dead and his body was immediately taken to the crematorium. If, on the contrary, he moved, it signified that he was not dead after all, so he would be forced to resume his uninterrupted work. Anyway, the cold efficiency of the Nazi killing machine is nowhere described with more dispassion than in the autobiography of the Auschwitz camp's commandant Rudolf Höss, written during his free time while standing trial at Nuremberg. With some pride, he describes how he himself came up with the idea of using Zyklon B, a pesticide for rats, to gas hundreds of people at a time, and then of using specifically built crematoria to dispose of the bodies. With some fondness, he recalls having built the 2 large crematories in 1942 and 1943, each with, quote, 5 ovens with 3 doors per oven, which could cremate about 2,000 bodies in 24 hours. There were 2 smaller crematoria as well. This was a killing machine unlike anything the world has ever seen. As Höss recalls, quote, the highest total figure of people gassed and cremated in 24 hours was slightly more than 9,000. It reads like a contest. As horrible as it was, the gas chamber was in some ways preferable to the other options. The right-hand man of the mad doctor Mengele, Miklos Niezli, a Hungarian Jewish prisoner with advanced medical training, who did most of the requisite autopsies, tells of what happened when the gas chambers were overcrowded with victims. The quote unquote surplus were taken out, kicking and screaming, to be shot in the back of the head in front of a huge pyre built inside a deep ditch. They were then tossed into the flames. The fortunate ones were dead first. Even the ace shot of the number 1 crematorium fired a second shot into anyone whom the first shot had not killed outright. He wasted no time over such trifles. Here, the majority of the men were thrown alive into the flames. On another occasion, with the children, the rush to murder meant that there were no bullet anesthesia at all. A particularly haunting image was given at the Nuremberg trials as a Polish woman named Severina, an Auschwitz detainee who managed to survive the camp for over 2 years, from October 7, 1942, until its liberation in January of 1945. At the trial, she described the selection process by which some Jews were sent to the labor camp, whereas most, including all women with their children, were taken off to an immediate death. In this excerpt from her testimony, she is being questioned by the prosecuting counsel named Smirnov. Tell me, witness, did you yourself see the children being taken to gas chambers? I worked very closely to the railway, which led to the crematory. Sometimes in the morning, I passed near the building the Germans used as a latrine, and from there, I could secretly watch the transport. I saw many children among the Jews brought to the concentration camp. Sometimes a family had several children. The tribunal is probably aware of the fact that in front of the crematory, they were all sorted out. Women carrying children in their arms or in carriages, or those who had larger children, were sent into the crematory together with their children. The children were separated from their parents in front of the crematory and were led separately into gas chambers. At that time, when the great number of Jews were exterminated in the gas chambers, an order was issued that the children were to be thrown into the crematory ovens or the crematory ditches without previous asphyxiation with gas. How should we understand that? Were they thrown into the ovens alive, or were they killed by other means before they were burned? The children were thrown in alive. Their cries could be heard all over the camp. Jesus fucking Christ. It's just hard to read. Like, fuck. Whew, hold on, man. Shit. Where's my coffee? God damn it, man. That's fucking heavy. Yeah, that's insane, man. Anyway, the cries of children screaming from the midst of the blazing ovens. Those who were not killed but selected for the labor camp were scarcely treated any better. They were systematically starved, abused, beaten, and in most cases, literally worked to death. Mengele's assistant, Niesli, estimated that the vast majority died from such treatment within 3 or 4 months. And this was not simply at Auschwitz. Other camps were as bad or worse. Belzec, for example, had hundreds of thousands of inmates. Only one is known to have survived. Once one gets beyond the statistics, beyond the numbers, beyond even the mind-numbing experiences of these millions of people inhumanely treated and brutally murdered, once we try to understand it all, how can we make sense of the Holocaust? Putting aside for a moment the 5 million non-Jews who were killed, how can we fathom the heartless extermination of 6 million Jews? The Jews were to be God's chosen people, elected by God to enjoy his special favor in exchange for their devotion to him. Were the Jews chosen for this? As hard as it is to believe, there are Christians in the world who have argued that they were. This is one of the many ways in which anti-Semitism continues to thrive as much in our day as it did during the pogroms of Eastern Europe, during the Inquisition, all the way back during the Middle Ages, into the early period of the church. Right after the Second World War, the German Evangelical Conference at Darmstadt, in the country that was responsible for the genocide, claimed that Jewish suffering in the Holocaust had been a divine visitation and called upon Jews to stop rejecting and crucifying Christ. This was not German Christianity's finest moment. Any way you look at it, the vast majority of those who died in the Holocaust were innocent sufferers, people like you and me, uprooted from their homes, families, and careers, and subjected to unspeakable cruelty. How could God allow it to happen? One innocent death would be hard to explain. One 5-year-old boy gassed to death. One teenager starved to death. One mother of 3 frozen to death. One upright banker, chemist, doctor, or teacher beaten to a bloody pulp and shot when they refused to rise to their feet. But we're not talking about 1, 2, or 3 deaths like this. We're talking about 6 million Jews and 5 million others. It would take many volumes to detail the pain, misery, and suffering. The world itself could hardly hold the books. How could God allow this to happen to anyone, let alone his quote-unquote chosen people? The modern philosophical problem of theodicy, which has been with us since the Enlightenment, is how we can imagine that God exists given such senseless pain and suffering. For ancient peoples, however, there was never, or almost never, a question of whether God or the gods actually existed. The question was how to explain the God or the gods' relationship to people given the state of the world, given the fact, which almost every ancient person took as a fact, that God is both above the world and involved with it. How can one explain the corollary fact that people suffer? Many of the biblical authors were concerned with this question, even obsessed with it. From Genesis to Revelation, biblical writers grapple with this issue, discuss it, agonize over it. A very large portion of the Bible is devoted to dealing with it. If God has chosen the Jews, or also alternatively the Christians, to be his people, why do they experience such horrible suffering? Is it true that there was nothing in the ancient world quite like the Holocaust? That required the technological advances of modernity, the ability to transport millions by rail and kill thousands by gas and incinerate hundreds in specialty-built crematoria. But there were slaughterers aplenty in the ancient world and wretched suffering of all kinds caused by all manner of circumstances: military defeat, cruelty to prisoners of war and torture, drought, famine, pestilence, epidemic, birth defects, infant mortality, infanticide, and on and on. When these things happened, how did ancient authors explain them? One of their most common explanations, it fills many pages of the Hebrew Bible, may seem simplistic, repugnant, backward, or just dead wrong to many modern people. It is that people suffer because God wants them to suffer. And why does God want them to suffer? Because they have disobeyed him, and he is punishing them. The ancient Israelites had a healthy sense of the power of God, and many of them were convinced that nothing happens in this world unless God has done it. If God's people are suffering, it is because he is angry with them for not having believed or not having behaved in the ways they should. Suffering comes as a punishment for sin. Where does this view come from, and how can we explain it within a biblical context? To make sense of this classical view of suffering as a punishment for sin, we need to consider some historical background information. Suffering as punishment, the biblical background, and that's the chapter 2, section A, I guess you could call it, which is where I'm gonna leave it for the moment. So I can remember. This book is so fucking good. All right, am I supposed to be looking out your window or, no, motherfucker, you're supposed to be looking at me. How about that? That's what the fuck you're supposed to be doing. Don't make fun of me for wearing a button-up collared shirt and shit. I just didn't feel like putting on a t-shirt. Let me put this up here. Fuck! No, hold on. Yeah, hold on. Fucking hell. That could have been bad. You so fancy. What's going on, Vendrick? Shit, I'm chilling, bro. You gotta look fly. I feel you, bro. What the fuck you paint your nails for? Jake, don't come in here with that bullshit. Straight up, son. Obviously, because I wanted to. What the fuck? Why you ask jackassy questions? Because you wanted to. So, what the fuck? What the fuck? Is this not America? Is this not a free fucking country? What the fuck, man? Shit. The fuck? Bitch, is your mom gay? I can't be gay if I'm fucking your mom. What the fuck, dog? I don't even know why that matters. Are you, bitch? The fuck? What the fuck difference does it make? Who cares? Like, so what? I'm not, but what difference do it make? Like, who gives a shit? Still get more pussy than you. With the nails. Right, man. You tripping, bro. Like Mary Jane, I don't get it. Motherfuckers be tripping, son. He lucky I ain't got on lipstick and eyeliner. But we went over this yesterday. Only reason why I ain't got the lipstick is because it's so fucking hard finding black lipstick at some place that isn't a makeup store. Like, I haven't been to like MAC or like Sephora. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm pretty sure they have black lipstick there. I just haven't been there. I don't know. I might go today actually and get some. I just want to see what I look like with black lipstick on. You know what I'm saying? So what? The fuck? Marilyn Manson do it. Don't know I give him a hard time. Well, they do, but not for that. You know. Why he get to wear lipstick, but I can't? Is it because I don't make music and shit? Why I gotta make music for you to be like, oh, okay, it's cool now. Now you can paint your nails. You make music or whatever. I don't fucking know. I don't get it. Like, obviously, there's a segment within amongst men who are given a pass, whose sexuality isn't necessarily questioned when they see them wearing eyeliner and have their nails polished. Because as long as that person is, I guess, associated with rock music of some kind, then now it's okay. But if they don't make music now, is it just gay or what? Like, that's what I mean. Like, what is the criterion? Or is it even gay when they do it? Like, who fucking cares? I wouldn't even care if it was considered gay. Why is that so? You know what? I'm going to start making straight a pejorative. Man, get that straight shit out of here, bruh. Joe straight ass. Don't nobody want to hear that straight ass shit. You know what I'm saying? What the fuck are you straight? I'm going to start making straight seem like a pejorative since we want to be on that. It's so dumb. Like, why can't y'all just let people be? Like, as long as what they're doing isn't bothering anyone else. You know? Like, I'm not trying to get you to paint your nails. You know what I'm saying? But Christians are definitely trying to get me to become a Christian. Why can't you just let Christians be Christians? It's like, why you can't just let me be me? You know what I'm saying? Why you got to keep coming in my videos talking about Jesus loves you? Like, you know I don't believe in that shit. You're just harassing me at this point. You know, but I let y'all do it, you know. Like, I don't report y'all or nothing. It's like, whatever. I just roll my eyes at it. Sometimes I'll respond. Most of the time I won't. But it's like, at the end of the day, I don't really care. But yeah, I just think it's disingenuous for Christians to think that somehow they're going to convince someone who reads books to specifically dealing with religion and Christianity, even more specifically, you know, to think that I'm a
unlearn everything I've learned and just be like, oh no, Jesus. Yeah, get the fuck out of here. I don't need Jesus. Like, I don't need that concept. Like, to me, it's all weird. It's like someone who, like, when people talk about like Jesus and the devil and hell and demons, to me, it's like I'm hearing like, and Harry Potter and the elves and Mordor. I know that's a completely different storyline. That's fucking Lord of the Rings, but fucking hobbits. You know what I mean? Eye of Sauron. Like, when I hear people say God, Jesus, shit, like that's what I think of. Like, it's all the same to me. Like Peter Pan, fucking Narnia, like, you know what I mean? Like all these made up fucking worlds and shit. You know, with these made up beings that. But for some reason, this particular book, just because it's so fucking old, I'm supposed to believe it. What? What? You know, make the fuck out of here. Nah, son, there's plenty of other books, well, way better written that I don't believe them either. Like, but I don't think anyone who wrote those books expected you to believe any of this shit. But whatever. What's up, brother? A good day to be a stoner. I've been watching your videos. I wish you would. This is just a personal, just a tip. You know what I mean? Like, just whatever you're going to react to a video. This is my own personal opinion. You could just say fuck off, Dave, whatever. But in my own personal opinion, if I were to give you any advice on how you could improve the quality of your videos, I would urge you to, like, specifically when you're cutting in, like when you're doing a cut in on someone, you know, like how I do and shit, you know. But like, you let them say what they're going to say, then you cut in to say what you're going to say. Maybe rehearse it 4 or 5 times or more so that you can get it just right. So you can come off saying exactly what it is you want to say. You thought it out. You've said it out loud so that you can hear what it sounds like. And then thought, no, maybe I could word that better, you know. And then you want to project it, like project it with your voice, like sound confident, like you mean this shit. You know what I'm saying? So whenever you get on these Christians, again, before you cut in, just be like, all right, cut in, pause, maybe do some research if that's what's required, or at least just get your thoughts together so that when you deliver your thought, it comes out, you know, with some authority, you know what I mean? And project it like how I'm doing. Like I'm almost yelling at this fucking phone, you know what I'm saying? But I'm like, just use your outside voice. Because like you be quiet as fuck and it comes off like you don't think this stuff through. You know what I mean? Like you don't give this shit a lot of thought. It's all just sort of knee-jerk reactions to whatever the stimulus is, as opposed to like a thought out, you know, response. That's it. That's all I got. You know, I was like, man, I like his video. Like I like what he's doing. But and now some of your videos I look at and I think his interpretation is incorrect, or the Bible doesn't say that. But because I don't lob claims against the Bible that aren't biblical. You know what I mean? Like I don't make a claim about the Bible that I couldn't back up with a scripture in the Bible. Like if I say the Bible supports slavery, I can give you 10 verses off the top of my head that will take you directly to that. You know what I mean? And not just, for instance, like Hagar. Okay, like because I put this in one of the fucking posts or whatever. Like Hagar's wife, right? Or no, not Hagar's. I'm tripping. Hagar was Sarah's slave. Now, just me telling you that doesn't mean anything. I'm not necessarily saying, oh, see this here, that's a slave. That means God supports slavery. Like, no, that's literally just a telling of someone who had a slave, and this is what happened. That doesn't necessarily mean that God's endorsing the behavior. It's just a retelling. It's just a retelling of the account. That's it. Like, however, that's why I don't include that verse. Like, I don't include verses like that where they're just talking about, oh, someone had a slave. Like, nah, I mean, where God's like, so look here, right? When you get slaves, these are the ones you're supposed to enslave. These are the ones you aren't. And now for the ones you are, of the ones you're allowed to enslave, these ones you can only enslave for so long, okay? Unless you give them a wife and they're like, I love my master and my wife and kids and I don't want to give them up. And then they'll take you to the city and then pierce your ear with an awl and you become the master's property for life. Whatever, it's a loophole. But nonetheless, it is endorsed explicitly so, So I give receipts essentially for the claims that I make against the Bible. Now, Christians, for whatever reason, can't do that, but that's beside the point. My point is, I guess my overarching point is just make sure you have a firm grasp of what it is you're talking about before you offer an opinion on it. Or more importantly, before you call someone else out for it, if in fact there's a chance that you're wrong. Just in general. I don't mean like something that's like contradictory, because I be doing this shit all the time. Like, I just be wanting Christians to find the verses in the Bible that contradict what I'm saying. Like when I say about 1 Timothy, they're like, well, you don't understand the context. I'm like, I get the context, okay? Like, Paul was writing letters to the young, to the young preachers or the young churchmen. These were guys who were starting their own congregations, and he just wanted to make sure everything ran as he felt it should. And so he was writing different letters, to like Timothy or to the Ephesians or to the people of Corinth, So he was writing letters to them, explaining like, yo, women ain't allowed to do this, women ain't allowed to do that, and all that shit, right? But then you could just find some more like New Testament verses that'd be like, oh no, it's totally cool. Women can do that shit. Women can totally usurp authority over man. I'd like to see where that verse is, but they could find other verses that are like, nah, it's totally cool for women to teach in the church. It's like, all right, but they never offer those verses. Like, well, give me the fucking verse. But half of them don't even know that 1 Timothy say that. Or that Paul was writing to Timothy to be like, yo, this is how I feel like shit should go down straight up, and then the letters, like I said, same thing to Corinthians. And that's why the letters, like, that's why 1 Corinthians and 1 Timothy are so fucking similar in wording, because obviously Paul wrote both letters, he wrote to both congregations. So I just thought it was interesting. Like, and that's why normally, like, I don't ever go to the Corinthians, version when it's like, God said women ain't supposed to teach in the church, even though he says the same damn near word for word in the Corinthians. It's just, it seems more harsh the way he wrote it to Timothy. That's why I love using the Timothy one. Like, Timothy, when he was writing to Timothy, it's like he had a grudge or something against women. He's like, look, tell these bitches they're not to fucking usurp authority over a man, all right? They need to learn anything, ask a man. Otherwise, shut the fuck up. And it was like, damn, all right, Paul, shit, That's all. It's like, that's why it killed me that all these women be on here like trying to preach and shit. So, and I even had to look it up. Like, I had to look up shit. Like, what the fuck is a church anyway? Like, is it just because I wanted to think that wherever you were holding a congregation, wherever you were preaching the word of God, that became a church. But according to the definition of church, and many definitions, because I was trying to find some shit to support my position, but I was wrong. So whatever, like, I'm willing to accept it if that's where the evidence leads. But yeah, so I couldn't find anything basically that made it so that what she was doing could be considered preaching in a church, because according to the definition of church, it has to be a public place. And I'm pretty sure she was reading from like her bedroom or some shit, and your bedroom is not a public place. So technically you're not preaching. However, would you consider YouTube or TikTok a public platform? Because if that's the case, then for at least for while you are recording the video of you preaching or you reading the Bible to this congregant to the congregation, which would be anyone who comes across your video. In that instance that you are recording, because now I'm wondering, no, I don't know. Maybe there would be a difference of opinion on that. Because I was thinking, in order for you to be preaching in a church, do you physically have to be at the church? Because I was just thinking, you're not physically like at TikTok, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to word that, but you are definitely on its platform, and therefore the platform becomes the church in that instance that you're recording a TikTok preaching, you know? Because if that's the case, then in that instance, anyone who's watching your TikTok becomes an unwitting participant in your church service, which would mean that a man could come across your video and enter your church service. And in that instance, you are now usurping authority over this man and are preaching in the congregation of TikTok, for instance. And you are preaching to this man when you don't have the authority to do that. You see what I'm saying? Like, I know, bruh. I just be wanting, you know. I mean, first of all, I don't know what you mean by higher power. I mean, there's all kinds of power, you know what I'm saying? There's solar power, nuclear power, thermal. I mean, there's all kinds of power, you know what I mean? I don't know what you mean by that. So no, I guess, you know. What's going on here, y'all? Shit. You still talking? Yeah, no, everyone. Carl, Rollo. So how's your day going so far? It's all right, brother. I already got to make a couple videos, you know what I'm saying? My books came. I ordered a couple books about the historicity of the Bible and Jesus, as usual. I got more books coming. Well, not yet. I'm going to order some, but yes, I got my books in, one of which I was reading earlier on live, and we've made it to chapter 2.1, if you will. Yeah, man, fucking, I can't complain because I could literally be in Gaza right now, so I can't complain about anything, you know. Well, nah, Jesus, I don't know what you could consider Jesus, because he doesn't. Communism and socialism are arise out of bourgeois societies. So unless the society is already a bourgeois society, then these sort of two things won't develop. Now, I don't know if I would argue that Jesus, assuming he lived, which I won't argue that he didn't, did not live in a bourgeois society. Therefore, these concepts wouldn't have even made sense. Like, the only they lived during a time where there were like only emperors and kings and shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there was only at the time, I guess, a theocracy or some sort of dictatorship or whatever, but you can't get those. Like, socialism and communism don't arise out of dictatorships or out of like rule by a king or some despot. It just doesn't work that way, obviously, because they can just have you killed as soon as you talk that shit. So it has to come through a bourgeois society like ours and others, but just to stick with ours as the example, like it has to come out of this sort of society, a bourgeois society, where we have like this democracy and a fucking, or how in Great Britain they have a parliament, you vote people in and like blah, blah, like, all that's bourgeois. Not saying that that's a problem. I mean, obviously that's good. Like, otherwise we couldn't get to where I'm trying to get us to go. So we need this. But anywho, because it's like asking, why would I wear fucking Star Wars apparel if I don't believe Darth Vader really existed? Like that's essentially what you're asking me. Like, I look at the Bible. Just to take two examples, we have the Bible and we have Harry Potter. Okay. Now, if I find characters in the story interesting, then I might go out and buy attire that shows that I'm interested in these characters from this story, from this book, or whatever. Same thing with the Bible. Like, you had all these characters throughout the Bible, you know what I mean? And how they're represented in the imagery we use here in the Western world. I like the ones that are associated with the so-called bad guys within that story. Essentially, the people who are in Slytherin, but only in the Bible. Like, so I like the people who are in Slytherin. Like, I just thought only in this context, I feel like the real Slytherin would have been God. Like, he would have been the one that was over the fucking wicked, because he was the one doing all the motherfucking killing and slaughtering and genociding and world destroying. Like, he was the one doing all that, not the devil. Like, so the devil, in as far as the Bible is concerned, is the good one. The devil, as far as the Bible is concerned, is, what was it, Hufflepuff? Not Hufflepuff, but what was the fucking main one? Like, but am I seriously not knowing this? Yes, I seriously am, because I'm not a fucking Harry Potter fan. I shouldn't know this shit. Like, Gryffindor. That's right, Gryffindor. Like, so I feel like Satan would have represented, the group of Gryffindor within the Bible, and the God of the Bible would have represented the members of Slytherin, because he's just evil to the fucking core. Like, I mean, how do you read the Bible and come away with like, yeah, he was a pretty patient God, pretty understanding, It's like, nah, he was wrathful as fuck. Like, how many times did he have to say it? Like, he said he was jealous a couple of times. Like, what else does he need to tell you? Like, he's like, look, no, fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. Don't you worship no other fucking gods. Just me. Okay? Fuck those other gods. I'm the only one. And don't like make shit that like represents where I'm at, or none of that shit. No heaven, no angels. Don't make shit like that. And definitely don't worship it. I swear to fucking God, don't worship it. Do not make yourself idols and worship it. Okay? It's like the first two commandments was all about him. You know what I mean? He was so worried you're going to worship some other God. Like, clearly God thought there were other gods. I don't know why y'all feel like, oh no, he's the only one. It was like, even he thought there was others. Why would you say that then? Like, don't worship no other gods but me. It's like, that would be a weird thing to say if you knew there weren't other gods. Like, if you was the only dude on earth, why would you be like, don't date no other dude but me? Like, what other fucking dudes? You're the only fucking man on earth. Fuck you mean? Like, that's a stupid thing to say. Like, don't go to any other McDonald's but this one. This is the only McDonald's. What do you mean? We live in a small town. There's no other McDonald's. This is the only one. So you're acknowledging then that there's other McDonald's? How far do I have to drive to get to that one? Like, because you tripping. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, even God thought, at least the God of the Hebrew Bible, the God of the Old Testament, at least if by his own words, must have thought that there were other gods and he just didn't want you to worship those because he is jealous. Like, nah, fuck them. Nah, I'm the one. I sent my son. How about that? Hell nah. Right. Especially if the other McDonald's got a working fucking McFlurry machine and shit. We there. Bro, they done fell off some, son. They look like a butt. They look like I got a butt on my arm. Like somebody's ass twerking on my motherfucking arm. I can't make it twerk though. Like, I can't, whatever. Where my motherfucking lighter at? Oh, here we go. Look at my lighter. My lighter fruity as fuck. Wait, can I ask you something? Yeah. What's up, Ardorf? Ardolf? Ardolf. That's how you say it. That's how we saying it anyway. That's how we saying it now. Ardolf. Then why does Saul consult the dead? Servants of other gods calling fire? That's cool. Though, fruity as hell. I know, right? I was like, what the fuck? I don't even know where I got this. I would have picked this up. You know what I'm saying? Must have just found this shit. You don't want to see my abs, son. If you want to see my abs, just go look at my other videos with my shirt off. Like, I don't feel like doing that right now. Why are you making me a piece of meat? Don't subject me to that. That's for women. I'm just kidding. I'm just playing, man. I'm just playing. Like, we only sexualize women, okay? It's not a guy thing. I'm just fucking around. Of course we sexualize men. We do it all the fucking time. We sure as shit do. I'm just being stupid. That's all. You know they gonna motherfucking restrict this video, right? You gotta be 18 to watch shit. You gotta be 18 to watch this video. Once I'm done with it. I know, right? Ooh, wait. Here, bro. Hit that shit. No wonder, bro, atheist. I know, because it's cooler on this side of the fence. I don't want to have to go to church. Fuck you mean? Fuck that shit. Why would I be doing that anyway? Not saying that there's not benefits to being members, of a church community. There's all kind of social benefits to being part of a community. But doesn't mean that God is real. Nah. No, sir. No, sir. Not at all. Yahweh originated in Yahwism upon. I mean, not really, because they weren't even sure if Yahweh is really even what it meant. Like, those are just the letters they saw, YHWH. Like, there's a whole, you should do some study the history of that even. Like, even that's interesting. I've never done DMT, but I keep hearing about that shit. Charlie Murphy. He's funny, though. I mean, he was at least on the Chappelle Show. That used to be my shit back in the day. You're scaring me. Why? Don't be like that, brother. I don't have I heard there's like a satanic church around here somewhere. I have no interest in that. Not at all. Because they're probably gonna believe there's a devil and trying to worship it. It's like, shut the fuck up. You don't fucking know. And even if so, how would you know how it wants to be worshipped? How you know it don't want to be worshipped the same way God is worshipped? The exact same way. Just to piss God off. How do you know he don't want you to worship him that way? Why would you think it needed to be blood and orgies or whatever the fuck? That's just, no. Don't let me pretend like I know what the fuck devil worshippers be up to. I'm not trying to disparage them. To each his own. Devil worshippers don't have no impact on laws that get passed or none of that shit. shit. No, fool, quit asking. What do you think about the current state of the Church of Satan? I don't know anything about the current state of the Church of Satan. I only know a little bit about the Satanic Temple. But and that's only because like they keep sending me newsletters and shit. Because I subscribe to the church, to the Satanic Temple. That's how that's like where I got my mug from and shit. I got a satanic mug, not the one I'm drinking out of just now, but. Family Guy, what's going on, cuz? Do you put a filter in yours? Yeah, I do. Gematria, the killing, what's it called? The Killing Fields? You talking about the real Gematria, or are you talking about like by Slipknot? Like, cause I'm, you know what I'm saying? But secular humanism. I just recently made a video about this too. Cause somebody asked me like, well, what is your belief system like? And I'm like, secular humanism. Puts an emphasis on logic and reason, and most importantly, naturalistic explanations, as opposed to any sort of religious doctrine or supernaturalism. Like, it's more about what's best for humankind. Situational ethics, essentially, you know. It's a number system. You smoke spliffs. Yeah, son. This Buddha Tahoe OG sativa. You know what I'm saying? That's all I've been rolling, really. Like today, at least. Yesterday, I rolled most of the Jenny Kush. You know what I'm saying? That shit is fire. Like, but don't get me wrong. Like that motherfucking that Buddha Tahoe OG ain't to be fucked with. But neither is that Wizard Snot. Like that Wizard Snot is. You know what I'm saying? I'd be so tempted to put them all together. Because the Wizard Snot, is that a hybrid? Yeah, the Wizard Snot is a hybrid. And push that shit with the motherfucking, with the Buddha Tahoe OG. Put them together. Now the sativa mixed with the hybrid, you know what I mean? And make a new kind of hybrid. And then mix that shit with the Jenny Kush indica, you know what I'm saying? And make some weird ass shit. Make some Bin Laden weed, goddamn it. Yeah, that Wizard Snot is the shit, son. Probably religion before nationalism. Why do you love Satan? I don't even believe Satan exists. Next question. Granddaddy Purple. Oh, is that right? I don't know, dog. I don't know. I done had that Granddaddy Perk. You know what I mean? But I prefer Kush over Perk. You feel me? Don't get me wrong. I gotta have some good ass Perk. You know what I mean? But I done had some pretty good OG Kush. Like, I forget the shit I had last time I bought from there and shit. I got pictures, though. I could look it up. Like, because I took pictures of every time I buy a bunch of weed, I'll take pictures of this shit so I can, like, remember what it was I bought. You know what I mean? But yeah, man. Them motherfucking dispensaries in Chicago, they nice. But lastly, I've been going to Detroit. So I've been going to, like, the ones in Detroit. Like, I just went there like a couple days ago. I wasn't even there long. Just went there to get some weed and came back. Some weed and some pizza. But I don't remember the name of the pizza place. But the pizza was good. You know what I'm saying? Do you like George Carlin? You said you spelled his last name wrong, but yes, I do. Absolutely. Oh, they was just trying to, man. They was just in the neighborhood, like passing out flyers and shit, trying to get motherfuckers to like get off drugs or some shit. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, what? Like, I was scared as fuck. I ain't gonna lie. I was like, oh man, what the fuck? Like, y'all niggas knocking on my door and shit. And because it was like 3 of them. It was like 3 cops and like 2 regular ass ladies and shit. And they was just walking with the ladies while they was passing out these flyers, trying to get motherfuckers to get off drugs. I was like, yeah, all right. It was like a little bag that had like a bunch of paperwork and like some, I don't know. I didn't even read this shit. Like I didn't even look at it. I was like, oh, okay, a bunch of like pamphlets or some shit and like some ink pens. So I kept the ink pens, of course, but I threw that shit away. I didn't fucking look at it. I mean, fuck the police. Anyway, yeah, I mean, hybrids is where it's at for real, for real. Have you been outside of the U.S.? If so, where have you been? Yes, I've been outside the U.S., but it was only while I was in the U.S. Army. That's the only reason why I've been outside the U.S. So I've been, since you asked, I've been to Germany. I was mostly in Bavaria, Germany. Went to the Czech Republic. We were in the Czech Republic. We were in this city called Karlovy Vary in the Czech Republic. So I was there, but that was during like Operation, what the fuck was that? Operation Joint. Fuck. Operation Joint something, like, because it was like a multitask, like it was like us and like other armies from other countries that were like our allies or whatever. Like we were all sort of there. But anyway, so the Czech Republic, Germany, Kuwait, Iraq, Qatar, or Qatar, if you will. I think some people pronounce it Qatar. Been there. I feel like I'm missing someplace. I know it was only 5 countries. Kosovo. Yeah, that was the other one, Kosovo. I've also been to Kosovo. Again, because we was on a mission, you know what I'm saying? Like we was in Kosovo. Why the fuck we were in Kosovo? Oh, that was fuck, that's another one. Another operation some shit. I can't remember what the fuck that was either. Because I only remember Operation Iraqi Freedom too. Like that was my last operation, was in Iraq. So I don't really remember the ones before that. Like, because that was when we was having a good time. Got to Iraq, no longer having a good time. Like, shit. Like, Iraq fucking sucked. Like, I mean, it was all right. Don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, we adapted to our environment, as humans do, you know. And I was only there for like a year and some change. So, and I made it. Like, I didn't come out wounded or dead, you know. Now, I did lose a friend, you know, and I knew other people who died. But, I mean, other than that, I mean, shit. I made it back, so fuck it, man. But yeah, like, but while we was there, like, we, you know what I'm saying? We did what we could to have a good time, you know what I'm saying? Like, we recorded a couple, like a rap album or whatever. We used to get online a lot and try to set up something to hit when we got back from the army. Like, once we got back from Iraq, we was trying to set up some German pussy to fuck once we got back to Germany and shit. And we was gonna use the whole, oh, I just got out of war, babe. You know, whole fucking, you know what I mean? All that shit. Nigga, we was in our 20s, like, whatever, of course, we're stupid. That shit fucking worked, you know what I'm saying? But whatever, so, and it was like, bitches couldn't wait till we got back, like, oh, fuck, I can't wait and shit. I'm living there and all that. It's like, oh, yeah, it's going down. Like, all this shit. So we had a good time. Like, we made the most of it. Like, we was in some of the fucking containers, living containers, playing strip poker-ish, or not strip poker, like strip spades and shit. We playing strip spades. We was wild. But like, and that was what we was doing on Christmas. That was Christmas Day, 2004. I remember that shit. Like, because we had all got in trouble that day because we weren't supposed to be in each other's rooms. Like, but it's like, motherfucker, it's Christmas and we over here in fucking Iraq. We ain't with our families and shit. Like, we can't just hang out with each other and shit. We ain't doing shit. Like, and I mean, all of us got demoted that day. Like, I mean, not that day because it would happen at night. Because like one of the first sergeants and it was like a first sergeant and a lieutenant, it came over and saw and came like to one of the containers we was at playing the game. But by the time they showed up, we was already dressed. Like practically at the game was damn near over when they showed up. So it wasn't like, oh shit, get dressed. It wasn't like that. But just the fact that like we wasn't obeying the rules 100%. Like all of us ended up getting demoted and shit. Like they took us to the captain the next morning and shit. We all had to go see the captain. And so the captain asks he asked my sergeant, he asked the first sergeant, he asked the first lieutenant, like damn near everybody in the room was like, yo, you know, I mean, it was Christmas, you know what I'm saying? And they're just having a good time, just trying to make the most of it. I mean, it wasn't like we did anything wrong. It's just we were in each other's containers, having a good time, enjoying one another's company, since we couldn't be with our families and friends back at home, you know. So this was the recommendation from everybody, just like, oh yeah, it's whatever, so, whatever, Cap. It get to the captain, he like, I don't give a fuck, basically. This isn't his exact words, but he basically was like, I don't give a fuck. Fuck that. I told y'all not to do it, and you did it, so how about that? And I'm demoting you a rank, and it's like, ain't this a bitch? Like, and he did that to all of us, like, I was like, man, that's bullshit. Like, bro, we didn't even do anything. Like, we was just hanging out on Christmas. Like, come the fuck on. Or does it not matter to you? Like, that's all. I mean, these holidays don't matter. Like, I mean, he was American. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like, I know you get it, bro. Like, you got family back at home, too, that you're not with on Christmas Day. You just mad because you wasn't in there playing with us and shit. Like, we was in there having a good time. You just mad because you wasn't having a good time. Hell nah. What you mean? I mean, it's all right if a Christian's in here. I don't mind them. Like, Christians don't bother me. It's just when they get pushy and shit. You know what I'm saying? When they just won't shut the fuck up, spamming me with the same shit over and over again. It's like, but I don't mind, like, speaking to people that don't agree with my opinions. Like, we can have a debate. It's cool. You know? Christmas in the CHUs. You already know. Hey, yo, Michael. Shit. Hanging tough, man. I need to go take some more of that motherfucking medicine. My back's starting to fuck with me. This coffee cold. Yeah, we have. You said I'm extremely unorthodox. I go to the Round Table Church. Is that a real church, or are you just fucking with me? Like, I don't acknowledge God as the only God and shit, you know what I mean? Like, well, I mean, I would just need evidence that any of those gods are real things, you know what I mean? I mean, why we always gotta assume a God has to be powerful? Like, maybe he's just a bitch-ass, weak-ass God. Like, I mean, I'm God, but I can't do nothing. Like, how we know, like, God ain't on punishment from some bigger God who's like, nah, dog, you ain't allowed to use your powers for, like, 1,000 years. You know what I'm saying? And, like, and that's our entire lifetime. So we're just like, well, I mean, why isn't that a possibility? You know? I mean, since we're in the realm already. As a German, I like to say you're welcome, but thanks. I mean, I had a good time in Germany. Like, I almost didn't want to leave. Like, I just missed, like, familiarity is all it really was. Like, I miss knowing where shit is, you know what I'm saying? Knowing how to get around, knowing where people I love, and you know what I'm saying? Like, I just missed familiarity of home. That's all it was. But I fucking loved Germany, dog. Like, if I could move there today, I would. Like, I'd get the fuck out of here and be over in Germany like a motherfucker. Like, Germany is fucking dope. At least where I was at. Like, I don't know about, you know, northern parts of Germany, because I was like, you already know, like, where I was at was more in the southern part of Germany. So I don't know. But I would be willing to find out. Y'all have some beautiful architecture there. Like, the castles and shit. And just like I was eating at some fucking Italian restaurant, and just like off in the view, just far off in the distance, just nothing but grasslands and hills. And then it was like I guess you could call it a mountain because that's how tall it was, but it was like mostly grass, sort of. And at the top was a castle that all the people, like all the townspeople knew about. I'm just like, what? Like, I'm just like, yo, I fucking loved it there, man. Like, I don't feel like the United States got shit on Germany. Like, as far as just like the landscape, you know what I mean? And a lot of it's not even like, a lot of it's just because we've so fucked up this country with all this capitalist nonsense that I feel like we're just in just one long strip mall. Like, you know what I mean? And if it ain't that, then it's a cornfield. Like, what the fuck? You know, like, I just fucking hate it here. Like, I hate the ravages of capitalism and how everything is for profit. And like, so never mind the environment, never mind the people of any given country. It's just all about how can we get the already insanely, ridiculously rich richer. Like, that just can't be the whole. Where the fuck you come from? Anyhow. I lived near a U.S. air base in Germany. We absolutely adored Americans. We get into huge arguments. And yeah, I mean, I feel you. You know, I don't know what there is to debate. Like, America's a pretty terrible country. Like, not inherently so. I mean, how could it be? But like, all facts considered, especially given our foreign policy endeavors, holy shit. I just felt like we, for the most part, have just been a net negative on the world. What is happening? What are they doing? I'm so tempted to like go get in the prison.
I'm gonna just perk like I'm just about to go smoke a cigarette. Where the fuck did they go? I don't see where they went. It was like a girl and this little boy, and it was just, I guess she did something to him. It pissed him off, and he was running after her, and she was taking off in full speed. I'm like, what the fuck? What's going on? But I don't know which way they went. And we become worm food. We just die. There's no afterlife. There's none of that, you know. And I'm fine with that. That just means that this life, we have to make the most of it because it's the only one we know we're going to get. You know. Which makes it suck for those people who didn't get to live as long as a lot of us, you know. Like babies or whatever that didn't get to live past being a baby. You know, or any number of kids in any one of these fucking school shootings who didn't survive. It's like that they didn't get to make it past 12 or whatever. It's like, that shit sucks, especially when you know that this was it. This was their only life, and it was taken from them, you know. And that's just here in America. That's not even talking about the obscene number of babies dying in fucking third world countries. What the God damn. Why not my trash can over? Nobody else's trash can over but mine. Thanks, Panda Fuzz. That's what's up. Get your friends to watch my channel too, and your family members, especially the Christians. Back your ass up. You ain't no. Back up, Kennedy. Danny B. What are you doing? Is that right? Oh man, you need to have them subscribe to my channel. Just so they can be mad at me and shit and yell. Look, I got a whole other blunt rolled up, ready to go. Ready to go, B. Donnie B is amazing. He's my favorite one out of the 4 that I have. Donovan, Lucifer, Petunia, and Rosie. Petunia's the mom. Rosie's the second oldest. Well, she's the oldest of the kittens. Donnie B is the youngest. But in my opinion, he's the most like mature or whatever. Like, because Lucifer, I call him Louis for short. Louis fucking, he's such a child. He's such a child at heart. Like he always want to like climb on your back, or he's always like rolling around being cute. Like Louis is just, he just don't act his age. Donnie B serious. Donnie B start most of the fights. Ain't that right, Donnie B? and he's less annoying than like Louis is. Louis is a little more annoying. Personally, because he started this new thing where he's and he keeps fucking doing that over fucking and over again. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm mad I even did it. I don't want to get him started. Fuck. That shit is annoying. Mary Jane, could you do me a favor? Flash of hope, please. I don't need any of that. Go T on point. Thank you. 6'1". Yep. 6 foot 1 inches. 73 or 74 inches tall. I forget which one that is. And no, I don't know what that is in centimeters. Of my iPhone and MacBook and Bugatti. I don't fucking have a Bugatti. What the fuck? This is YouTube Shorts. I don't make long form content. I don't get paid for this shit. I'm a regular ass dude. Like I don't get a cent from YouTube. Not a penny. Like they are not paying me. I'm not part of their partner program. I don't meet the qualifications yet. I almost meet the qualifications. Like the only qualification I have yet to meet to meet the minimum requirements to join their partner program is I still have yet to get 3 million views within or 3 million watch hours, some shit like that within a 90-day period. And right now I've been teetering between 2.8 and 2.9 million. So I'm almost there. Like, and for the last 2 days now, it's been at 2.9 million. So maybe we're inching closer to that 3. But once I hit the 3 million, it'll probably go back down into the 2.9s. You know what I'm saying? Because it won't sustain. So it'll still be a while. But even once I hit it and it sustains at 3 million, just the payout. It just means that I would get a cut then of the pot of all the content creators who create shorts. So if there's and I don't know if that pot is the same just for one large pot, or is that regional, or how that works, but it's something like that. Like basically you just get a piece of the cut, you know what I'm saying? A cut of the pot or whatever, which isn't enough to
quit your day job, you know what I mean, on like not whatsoever. So it just, I literally do this for like A, fun, like let's just keep it real. B, educational purposes. So I try to I try to correct people's misconceptions of what an atheist is or what it even means or what a Satanist is, or, you know, because it's just not how Christians try to paint it out to be. And since I'm on that topic, let me just say real quick, atheism is not the position that there is no God or that God doesn't exist. The position is, I'm not convinced so far that there is one, which is a difference between saying there isn't one. I'm just saying when you say there is one, that I don't believe you because you haven't provided any evidence to compel me to believe you. That's all I'm saying. I'm still open to be convinced. There could be a God. It's just you haven't given me any evidence to substantiate the position that there's some God out there. It's like, so I just thought I'd clear that up because that's the position I hold. Now, there are people who make the affirmative claim that there is no God. Now, once they do that, they have assumed a burden of proof because now you've made an affirmative claim that there is no God or there is no gods or there are no gods. So now you've assumed a burden of proof and you would have to prove that there aren't. But then it's like, well, you can't prove that there aren't gods because now it's like, well, you would have to prove that there's no, like anybody's conception of a God, like any literal person, like from here, every person in America, every person in every other country, every God that anyone could ever conjure up, you would have to disprove every single one of them. And it's like, as opposed to the more easier position of just, I don't believe you. That way, the person saying that there is one, the burden of proof rightfully remains with them. I don't have to just prove that your God doesn't exist. You're the one saying there is one, so prove there is. And I mean, it goes with anything. If you tell me you have a new Bugatti, and I'm like, word up, and knowing that you don't have a job or sell dope or nothing like that, it's like, well, where the fuck would you come up with a Bugatti? Like, did you win a sweepstakes or some shit? It's like, no. It's like, well, I need some evidence that you have a Bugatti that is actually yours. You know, so you could take me to a Bugatti, but I would still need to see the registration. I would need to match that with the VIN number to make sure that this actual Bugatti belongs to you. And then I would have to match whatever information is on that slip with your driver's license. And I would have to make sure that this driver's license is a legitimate state issued driver's license and not some forgery. And that you are actually you in the driver's license picture. Like there's ways I would have to go about discerning whether or not your claim stands up. And if the evidence checks out, it's like, I guess you have a Bugatti. But how did this happen? Like, I would need more information. Like, I would have to now accept the facts. Like, okay, I guess you have a Bugatti in your name. But then I would have more questions. Like, so how? Where did it come from? You know, how did you end up here? Like, you didn't get it. I mean, clearly you didn't get it in any of the conventional ways. You know what I mean? Like, so how did this happen? Like, I would need more, you know. It's the same thing. So I'm not saying you don't have a Bugatti. I'm just saying that's quite a wild claim, just given everything, you know. So prove it to me. Prove it to me. So the easiest thing you could do is show me the Bugatti, preferably one parked at his house, you know. That's a good start, but it's not enough to conclude anything. Someone could just be visiting you who owns a Bugatti who parked in your driveway. That's not enough, but it's a good start, you know. So let's go further, you know. So and that's what I mean. Like, but you can't do any of that with your God. All you can just keep saying is like, well, this and that, the trees or consciousness or whatever. Like, all those are just claims. They're just claims. It's not proof. It's not evidence. It's just claims, you know. And that's what I mean. Like, so that's what I mean. There's no compelling evidence because all the evidence that's ever offered up is always just not actual evidence. They're just more claims. You're just saying that God had something to do with that, but you don't provide any evidence to prove that. Because what if someone else, I could bring someone else, like a Buddhist or some shit, is like, nah, Buddha did it or whatever. I don't fucking know. And it's like, well, how do I know that your guy's right or Buddha did it? Like, how do I know? You know, maybe the Buddhist is correct. You know, like, why should I take your word? You know, just because I understand you easier, our language. You know, like, nah, like it just doesn't make sense. Like, there's no reason why any one religion should take preference over any other. I don't care how long it's been around. I don't care how many people subscribe to it. None of that matters. It just, at the end of the day, logically speaking, it doesn't fucking matter. I'm hungry, but now I don't want to eat anything because I don't just watch this thing about how practically all the food we eat is ultra processed. And that basically we shouldn't be eating any of it except for like whole grains and greens and fucking fruits and nuts and shit. You know what I mean? It's like literally everything else is fucking ultra processed. And I'm like, oh my God. Meaning that like the thing is broken down to its molecules. You know what I'm saying? And then they can then use that slurry of different molecules to then create whatever they want to make. And usually it's bullshit. You know, I mean, I could say usually it's bullshit, but practically all of it's bullshit. I mean, if this is what you had to do to make this isn't food anymore. Like, this is a food-like product, you know? And it's like, well, so you mean to tell me that the majority of what we're eating, what we're buying out of the grocery store are just food-like products and not actually food? Like, that just means, like, I don't want to eat nothing in my refrigerator right now. Like, nope. All that shit's ultra processed or just processed, which ain't much better, but at least it's still food. But ultra processed? It's like, that's chips and cereal. Yep. Like, pretty much anything that's plant-based, all that shit's ultra processed. And none of it's good for you. None of it's really food. And I'm like, man, that's all I got in the house right now is not really food. Fuck. I don't want to eat that shit. Now I just want to go like eat a salad or some shit. And I got some apples. I guess I could go eat an apple. I'll probably fucking do that. Because that's safe. That's considered like low processed, if processed at all. So that's cool. I'll probably just fucking do that. I don't want to do that. But I really don't want to eat any ultra processed food right now. Like, I just watched the video. Like, it's still too fresh. The wound is still fresh. Anyway, I'm gonna get the fuck off of here, man. I appreciate y'all watching. I should have interacted with y'all more, but I have a headache. I'm gonna let y'all go. Thanks for watching, man. I'm gonna holler at y'all.